and welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and this is a great episode with psychic medium Emily O'Neill. I love Emily's practical, grounded approach to mediumship. She shares about how she doesn't feel she was really born with these skills, but worked to develop them, which I think is really an important model. It's easy for us to think that a person either has medium and psychic skills or they don't. And I really appreciate seeing examples of people who've worked to develop the skills because it is within all of us if we wish to cultivate these types of skills. So Emily O'Neill is an evidential psychic medium, mentor, and coach who specializes in helping people connect to self and embrace change. She uses various skills such as divination tools, psychic skills, mediumship, and other personal development tools to help others understand the energies moving through their life so they can gain perspective and insight. So we'll get into that in just a second. I want to encourage you to check out karagoodwin.com, where you can get a free 10-minute meditation. If you want support for your meditation practice, I have a 21-day online program to help you develop your own meditation practice. There's also the Healing Hearth membership, where you can get live online assistance with your questions about meditation and life. And you can also get a personalized recorded meditation/energy transmission to help you get through whatever challenges are showing up in your life. I also have a recorded sacred geometry workshop series available. All of that and more available on karagoodwin.com. And now, enjoy this episode. Hello, Emily. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Kara. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's talk about what led you to becoming a medium.
That's a really good question. There's kind of two paths. Some people will tell the story of I was a kid and I saw things or felt things, but that really wasn't me. I know I was a really sensitive child and I definitely picked up on things. And I understand that now in hindsight, but I never thought of myself as a medium and I didn't know I could do it. So I've been working as a psychic and using tarot and things like that as a tool for self-development for a couple of years. And it was during a client session, um, I just ended up kind of accidentally making contact with someone in spirit and bringing forward message. And the client was like, "Oh, I think you're connected with someone in spirit." And I was like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. What do you mean?" And that's when I realized, like, oh, I kind of just bumped into it. And at that point, because I didn't really know anything about how that worked, like how being a medium worked, how do you do that? Could I repeat that? Could I do it again? Could I help people in this way? I kind of sought out some training and development, which is both easy and hard to find. Because I knew I wanted to learn in a really kind of practical and grounded way. Um, I do believe in the unseen world, obviously, and I believe that we can connect with people on the other side, but there's a lot of different ways that that can be done. And I was just like, I just need something real down to earth because that's kind of the personality type that I have. And so I found a place, a school where their values kind of lined up with mine, and I started to work on developing this really specific skill of connecting with people on the other side, and helping people heal from their grief. So I'm in my third year of training and development, and I've just started to work directly with the public doing just kind of straight mediumship stuff. I like to combine different modalities together, but in terms of mediumship, I just really didn't know I could do it. So my story of how did it happen? It kind of happened by accident, and then I had to intentionally seek out a way to cultivate that skill set. And I always tell people, you can do it too if you want to. You just a matter of time and attention, and if it's something that you're interested in or passionate about, we all have this innate ability to work either as a psychic or a medium or an intuitive. It's just it's not always a skill set that's nurtured anymore. It's not something maybe that's honored and respected in the ways that maybe it was in the past. And at least in the United States, we're always told, think things through, use your mind. So this more intuitive way of living is not something that, well, I don't want to speak for everybody, but when I grew up, that was not something that was really taught, modeled, or I would say even maybe respected.
Mm. Now, I understand you're an evidential psychic medium. So, what does
Yeah.
that mean? What is the word evidential, putting that in front of it? How does that change it?
So I feel like it's a way to distinguish between mediums who work to bring forward things that can be validated
Mm.
versus I'm channeling a message and there's really no way to validate the information. So I feel like it's really important if you're going to communicate with the unseen world that you can bring forward information that somebody can say, yeah, I can validate that. That's something that's true. I know this person did those things, or I know about that stuff, and I can confirm the information that you're bringing through is factual. So it's kind of a new phrase I've realized because I started saying it and people are like, what does that mean? And I thought, oh, I thought everybody knew what it meant, but it just means evidence that can be validated. I see this a lot of times on like the internet where maybe somebody's channeling a deceased celebrity, but they don't have consent from the family to do that. And they're saying, oh, so and so that's on the other side is giving me this information, but nobody can say
Mm.
if that's true or not. It's just
Okay.
a medium saying it's true, but it's like, how do we really know if we don't have a sitter or someone who knew the person that can say, yeah, that would make sense? Does that,
Mhm.
I hope that that answers the question, kind of makes sense.
It does. Now, when you're giving your sessions, are you trying, is there something different about your style where you're trying to pull through evidence that can support that it is that person, or does it just sort of happen that way?
Well, I would say that I'm not trying to do anything. It's actually quite a passive and receptive. I become very passive and receptive. So, Emily, my mind, my ego, my desire to give a good session, all that has to go off to the side. If that's involved in the process, it's going to influence things and perhaps place my bias into the reading, which that's not something that I would want to happen. So I just make a link, make that connection to the spirit communicator, and I have to just say the information that I get, even if it doesn't make sense to me, and trust the process and be completely in the flow while also checking in with my sitter, who would be the client, and asking if they can confirm the information. And I always ask people to respond to me in specific ways with a yes, I can take that, a no, that doesn't make sense to me, or I need a little bit more information, I'm not 100% sure. And then I kind of just keep working. And it's okay to get no's. Like I always tell people, don't be afraid to tell me, like, no, I don't understand that. It's just part of the process, and we keep moving and going with the flow. A lot of times when people tell me no, they'll just need a little bit of time and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you said that thing." And then a couple days later, weeks later, like, "It did make sense and I can validate that. I just couldn't in the moment."
Hmm.
So, I try to take it all with a grain of salt and just trust the spirit communicator and be very close with them and also connected to my sitter to be able to, bridge that gap between the deceased and the living to hopefully bring some comfort and healing and just to help people understand that the unseen realm of spirit is not a far away distant thing. It's very close. It's so close. And we can access it at any time that we want to. You can talk to your deceased loved ones. They know what's going on in your life. And I feel like when there's something called platform mediumship where you'll see mediums demonstrate it. You've probably seen Tyler Henry on Netflix or,
Hmm.
like John Edwards, James Van Praagh, all these famous mediums. My first encounter with, I think, mediumship was actually James Van Praagh on Oprah or something like that, like seeing it demonstrated and how so that's a way to kind of show people through demonstration how mediumship can work, where the medium couldn't know this information. They weren't fed it. They didn't even know who they were going to be working with beforehand. And so I like it works like that. So there's no trying on the medium's part at all. it's actually quite the opposite.
Mm. Well, and so what is it like for you? Because we, of course, we have the different capabilities that people,
Yeah.
a heightened sense of sight or hearing or whatever. What is it? What has it come
Yeah.
through for you?
Well, it's different every time.
Uh,
So I've had to get over thinking, "Oh, it worked like this last time, it's gonna work like this again." It's literally different every time. So it is a bit of walking up to a ledge and kind of just taking a leap every time I work with a client. So I had to get over a lot of fear, and because I wanted to do a good job and all of that stuff, but you have to get over that to be able to give a good reading. And so for me, the biggest adjustment was getting over myself and getting over the desire to be good, to give a good reading, to meet everybody's needs, being a little bit of a perfectionist. It's like that won't work in mediumship. But in terms of how the information comes, it's pretty miraculous.
mm.
Um I'm I'm assuming listeners are familiar with the clair senses, but if they're not, I'll talk a little bit about that. So we have more than 5 senses is what I would say. So obviously we know the sight and touch and things like that, but there are kind of like heightened senses that go beyond that that are called the clairs. And so a lot of people talk about clairvoyance, which is clear seeing and having visions, or clairsentience, which is clear feeling. You get a feeling. So there are a lot of clairsenses. There's clairgustance, where you taste something that's, you're not eating it, but you get a taste. And there's also like a smell. I can't remember all the names of the clairs, but there are a lot of them. So it's like you experience these things, but it's not like everything is right there, tangible, physical in front of you. And so that's what I'm using is I become really passive and receptive, and I do enter into a heightened state of awareness, which sounds strange, like you're passive and then you're also in a heightened state of awareness, but that's what it is.
Mhm.
The less you do, the better. And then I'll feel things, I'll just know something, and that's claircognizance, which is kind of the weirdest clairsense because it's like, where did that information come from? It's like, I just know it. And usually claircognizance is highly, highly accurate. And I usually kind of use a multiple clairsenses. So I'll see something, feel something, know something, pass the information on. And it seems like it's all happening simultaneously, and it kind of is. And you just have to be really very in the flow and very, very, very in the moment. And what can throw that off is either me or a sitter can, like, sometimes they try to trick you, or they're having a hard time or a bad day, or maybe you didn't make a link to the person they were hoping to hear from. So you have to be very flexible and adaptable and accommodating, but also, again, passive and receptive. So it really is a pretty interesting and unique skill set. And I certainly, if someone had asked me, what are you going to be doing in your 40s? I wouldn't have said being a evidential psychic medium. I'm pretty surprised about it too. And so, but it happened naturally and organically, and then I just intentionally cultivated this skill set because I've fascinated with it.
Mhm.
It's a fascinating thing, and I thought, well, the best way to learn is by doing it. And so doing it has been just such a rewarding experience, not just because it can help people, but because it's helped me develop as an individual
Mm.
and grow as a person, learning how to connect and bring forward these messages. It's very humbling. Um, and I definitely had to do some self work to be able to continue to develop and, be an ethical practitioner. I think part of mediumship is self-development. In fact, I would argue it's probably 90% of it. The technique itself can be taught, but how you enter into the process is a huge factor in your ability to be helpful to people.
Yes.
Because mediumship can do harm. I think that's something that's not talked about enough. There's a lot of things that happen in this field of work that are concerning and that probably aren't in alignment with my values. And I really strive, and this was the mission of the school that I attend, which is called the Oak Ridge Institute. a great place to learn if you want to be a psychic or a medium is we really want to raise the standard of care because there's no certification process, no credentialing. I don't know that there needs to be. I have really mixed feelings about that, but I do think a standard of care is important. And I think a lot of people, when they seek these services out, don't know what they should be looking for. And so you might end up with a really grounded, ethical medium that's going to take real good care of you. Or you could end up with somebody who doesn't operate at the level that's probably going to be beneficial to the client. So that's something that's really, really important to me.
That's so interesting. I'm really glad that you brought that up because sometimes when I've noticed in conversation, if somebody's recommending somebody, for example, there can be this like, oh, they've been doing this forever and they
Yeah.
haven't had any training and and there is
Yeah.
something to be said for that, like more, kind of quote unquote natural, I suppose, ability or
Yeah.
whatever. But there is that like, are okay, there hasn't been any training, so, like, are they just letting anything in or, like, who are their guides or
Yeah.
whatever, but can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that ethical piece and kind of the watch outs
Yeah.
that you were alluding to?
So, it's natural for everybody to do it. So, I mean, I could show you things and you'd be shocked what you'd be able to do. So it's natural for everybody. So when people are like, I didn't need any development, I've just been doing this all on my own. Good for you, but it also might imply you've been practicing on your clients and so
Oh,
and learning from that. So and look, that's fair enough. Like that could be an entry point for somebody and if that is the case, then I would probably say I'm developing, I don't have experience and I'm kind of practicing on you. You just need to be open and honest about that and let people know that. And obviously, if you were to do something that wasn't appropriate, own it and do better next time. Like, so you got to have that kind of side if that's the path that you're taking. But for me, do we learn and grow in the absence of others? No. We
right.
learn and grow within community. And it's my understanding historically, mediums became popular during the spiritualist movement. And those people, which, there's a lot of information on the internet and books about the spiritualist movement, and I'm sure mediumship extends prior to that. If you want to look at it from a cultural or anthropological perspective, I'm sure every culture had psychics and mediums that played an important role in the community. But um, what development did for me was it gave me a safe place to practice, to fall on my face, to cry, to fail, to learn, and to grow, and also doing it shoulder to shoulder with other people that are learning and growing too. And I'm so grateful to have found a community where I could do that. I knew that for me, I've never been a medium before, so I needed to work with people that were bigger, better, faster, stronger, and way more experienced than I am because I don't know what I don't know. And I think one of the things about any kind of spiritual practice or spiritual healing is there is a bit of a dynamic, I think, where people are like, oh, I can just do this. It's a natural thing. I don't really need any training. And it's not really about training or not training. It's about developing your skill set within community. So I like to imagine that prior to like maybe even 1,000 years ago or whatever, that if somebody was seen to have a skill or ability, it would have been the whole community that would have helped them learn and grow. No matter what it was that they were. Maybe you were good with herbs, maybe you were good so other people would come and support that and grow that skill. And that might be a little idealistic, but I do think that that's an important component if you're going to become a practitioner and to work with the public is find people that are further along than you and see what you can learn from them. Because, like I mentioned, we all have blinders. I certainly bumped it against mine when I got into community. And, I was surprised at the fact that my need to control, came up. My need to be good came up. My need to be seen in a certain kind of a way came up. And those things actually blocked my connection to the spirit world. And it was through community that I was able to get over those kinds of things. And I'll continue to have to do that. And so I'll always have a community where I practice and learn and expand my abilities, because you're never done. It's never like, oh, I'm level 10. I'm done, I'm done with my development. There's always something new to learn, and gosh, we're talking about the spirit realm. They're teaching us all the time and stretching us and showing us things that maybe we need to work on. As much as they say yay when we do something good, it's like it really is for me a practice and a process of self development. And I feel like if you approach any kind of healing modality with those values, you're probably on the right track.
I love that. So let's talk about your most significant metaphysical experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's so many.
Yeah.
I don't, well, I had kind of a recent one, and it might seem kind of simple, but I have been working on my confidence when I'm working with the public, because I know I know what I'm capable of, but I still have that like imposter syndrome kind of feeling every now and then, like, can I do this? Do I know what I'm doing? It's like, yes, you've done this so many times. Yes, you do. But I think we all kind of struggle with that. So I was like, okay. And I was listening to a meditation from Eileen Davies, who's a well-known medium, and she's just an amazing person, frankly. And she has some meditations, and one of them was about building your confidence. And I'd been doing it and doing it and doing it. And then and part of the meditation is you sort of ask your spirit helpers to give you a symbol or a sign or a feeling or something you can work with to help you build your confidence. And I was doing this meditation and nothing was nothing was happening. So of course you want to grasp for things. And so I'm like, you know better than to grasp. Just, it will come. And I think this was part of my confidence building process, by the way, the fact that it didn't come instantaneously. And I didn't give up hope or anything. I just kind of go on to the next day, right? Not today, maybe tomorrow. And I sort of just accepted my experiences for what they were. But I was working with a client and who was kind of struggling with something similar. And I said, hey, you want to do this meditation with me? Let's just see what happens. And we did it together. And I said, I'll do it with you. You do your thing. I'll do my thing. It's like only 6 minutes. And we both had a pretty profound experience.
Ooh.
And hers was different than mine, but I did get my symbol. And it did come to me, and I kind of poo-pooed it because it was sort of something that I wasn't expecting and that I thought was kind of cliche. I'm not going to lie. So my brain kind of was like, that's it? Like, what the heck? But I accepted it because, like this just, I mentioned kind of my reaction to this message that I got, because I think we all do that. Like question and think, that's the thing? Really? I don't know. Give me another sign. I don't know about that. I didn't exactly do that. I was just surprised at the symbol that they gave me because it was just so simple. And I had kind of had a premonition about it, but anyway, which made me kind of doubt it more in a weird way. But then I was working with my, this really specific tarot deck that I have, and I don't really use it very often, so I'm not familiar with all of the images. It's just sort of one I have been playing with to get to know. And I pulled a card to put on my altar, and guess what it was? It was the symbol that I had been given. I was like, okay, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that to heart. I'm going to take that seriously. And I was like, wow, thank you for just reinforcing that message for me. And I've been working with the symbol, and it's been very helpful to me and kind of calming my nerves before sessions, because all mediums get nervous before a session a little bit because you just don't know, nothing could happen. Something could happen. You just don't know. Like I mentioned earlier, it's sort of like you just take a leap. So that was one that was recent, but there are just so many. There was another day that it was the very first reading I was going to ever do, like with the public, that I didn't know. Someone I really didn't know. I was very nervous, and I said to Spirit, can you just, because I love eagles, bald eagles.
Oh, me too.
I was like, maybe you could send me a bald eagle today to boost my confidence and make me feel safe, or because I was scared. I mean, I was really scared. And I went on a walk and spent time in nature, and I walked up to the front of my house and I looked up at the tree, and sure enough, there was a bald eagle in the tree. So
Wow.
I have lots of experiences of love and support from the other side like that. I've also had an experience with something called trance healing. It's something that mediums do. So there's many forms of mediumship. I think that's something else I should say. Mental mediumship, physical mediumship, trance mediumship, and even more. So there are different kind of modalities within mediumship. And in trance mediumship, you blend with one of your spirit guides, and you can give healing to somebody through that, you and your guide. And I was in a session and somebody was giving me healing, and it's like you don't even know what you need sometimes. I really just went into it like whatever. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't even know if I believe in this. And so I was the sitter and the medium. You just sit there. There's no talking, there's no like tell me your troubles. You just say, "Okay, here's 20 minutes, start the timer." And I had a very profound healing experience that was both physical and emotional that did change my life. And it actually helped me move through that fear that I keep mentioning that I kept having. It was like they unlocked it in my body so that I could see it, acknowledge it, and release it. And the releasing process took about 2 weeks actually. So I actually spent a lot of time crying, but I knew I was moving through what I had been holding in my body because I felt them touch my body and like bring it forward because it was in my unconscious or subconscious. I didn't really know that it was there. And that was really profound, and I'm very, very grateful to have had that experience, and it made me understand that I'm quite good at emotional bypassing. So like I can tuck them away and keep on keeping on, and I was like, "Oh, I need to be mindful of that." And just work on being more present for how I feel, just for me as a person, and that was really, really helpful to me.
And you said you also do the trance healing as well? Is that another one of your
Yeah, yeah.
modalities?
Oh, yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the fun thing is I kind of like psychism and mediumship are two separate things. A lot of people don't know that. So I work psychically and as a medium, but also I could say I'll call it intuitive healing because it bridges all this stuff together. And I also use the tarot because I do think symbolic imagery really helps people get past their thinking mind and connect with their intuition. So I can usually do if somebody chooses to work with me, and it is my preference if I'm going to work like with all the modalities, not to just do one-off sessions, because how much can you really get done in an hour? You can get a lot done, but usually a lot could come up, and then it's nice to support people through that process. But I do one-offs, but it's not my favorite thing. I like to work with people over time. So I integrate all of those modalities, and I kind of get a sense and assess where someone's at, and then kind of go from there. It's definitely not exactly a formal process. It's sort of what's needed at the time, with the ultimate intention of helping somebody connect with their inner guidance system, so they can do it on their own. So they can develop that skill of kind of, oh, I can trust my intuition. I do know what my inner guidance system is. I am connected to the unseen world. Because it's just something that I think it's not taught. I mean, like, where are you going to learn all that stuff? I know I certainly wasn't taught about it, but once I learned how to do it, I was like, wow, this is so important. This is such a great way to move through life. So it's always my intention to help people connect with their tools and their system, so that they can kind of have a practice around honoring their intuitive nudges, because we've all had them. Everybody's had an intuitive nudge. I've never met anybody that's like, I've never had one. And I always ask people about that kind of thing, 'cause I'm very interested in it. And we've all not listened to it. And
Right.
that's and I'm always, when people are like, but I didn't listen, and that makes me bad. I'm like, no, that's a good thing, because now you know to
Right.
listen. That's
Yeah.
a good learning experience for you, that you can rely on your inner guidance system. You can rely on your intuitive senses. They'll never lie to you. They're always there. It's tried and true. It's our traumas, it's life, it's mechanisms of behavior and thought that get overlaid it. So it's always there. It's always been there. It will never leave us. It will never ever leave us. It's just life. Life
Mm.
happens and we get separated from it for a lot of good reasons. And I always tell people, fair enough. Don't be hard on yourself about that. It took me some work to get back home to mine and to find mine and to honor the way that it works through me, and you'll find your way to yours, and you'll find the ways that work for you, and it won't be like mine. It'll be like you, and you know what works for you, and that's so cool, right? Like that we're all different and we're all unique, and we're all gonna have a different path to
Mm.
that inner knowing and to connecting with that inner wisdom.
Right. Well, do you ever find yourself in a situation where you are receiving psychic information and you need to decide, like, should I use this or should I keep this to myself?
Yes. Yeah, so I try to have really healthy boundaries, like when I'm working them on, when I'm not, I kind of try to have boundaries around that. But yeah, I've definitely known things, and it's just because you know something, and this is something I always tell clients, is like just because you know something about somebody or a situation doesn't mean you need to act upon it or do something with it. That's where you have to use your discernment and really lean into, like, okay, because you can get information on anything at any time, really. So it's like, do I need to act on this? And you have to kind of lean into your inner guidance system to know if that's going to be helpful to somebody or not. So an example I used is like, you know, if is this information something the person can act on? Do they consent to receiving it? And do I feel like I really have to tell them this if you're not working in a client like practitioner setting? So consent's really important. It is not cool to just walk up to people and say, "I've got your dead grandma here," or "I know something about you." Who like that's not cool. That's not something we should be doing. And I know that TV shows make it seem like that's what mediums are doing, but they're all these people they're working with have signed a contract or have signed an agreement, and they're making it look like they're just walking up to somebody and doing that, but that's often not the case. There's too much liability there for that. I know that TV shows and stuff on social media might make it look like that, but I highly doubt that that's the case. And consent's just really important. So I've had asked people like I was in a Pilates class. I'll give you an example. I just got the sense that somebody's dog was dying. I was like, "Oh, this person's dog is dying. Oh, oh, that's sad." And so we were cleaning up after class, and I had a message about that situation, and I just said, "Hey," and this is somebody that knows me and kind of knows what I do. And I said, "Hey, you know, something did come up, and I was wondering if I could share it with you. If you're not comfortable with it, that's totally okay. But I really did feel like, oh, I gotta say something here." And the person was like, "Oh yeah, Emily, I'm okay. Like, let's go over here." And I gave them the message, and it was very helpful to them, and they were grateful for it. And so I just asked if I could,
Mhm.
and it was somebody that wasn't a stranger off the street or anything like that. So we do need to be very careful and conscientious about that, but that doesn't happen to me very often. So it usually does in a scenario like that where it's kind of somebody I'm an acquaintance with or know, or they're familiar with what I do. I'm like, are you okay with if I just share something with you? It's kind of along this line. Are you comfortable with that? And they're usually like, yeah, that's okay. Thank you so much. But I wouldn't do that probably with a stranger. And if somebody's like, no, I don't want to know, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. You don't
Yeah.
have to you don't have to consent to that. So I think that that's really important is consent.
Yeah. Do you have any examples from your work where you've surprised somebody or like told them something that was new information for them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
Absolutely.
examples of
Yeah.
that?
So a lot of times that can happen in a psychic session. It can also happen in a mediumship session. But the ones that are always, I mean, the examples that are coming to me are more when I'm doing mediumship because gosh, your spirit loved ones, they know. They just know. And if you need to know something, they're gonna let you know. They're gonna let you know about it. So, funny things, I get a lot about flight cancellations
Oh,
and things like
interesting.
that. So, I'll be in a session and I'll be with a spirit communicator and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're going on this trip and all of this is planned out." And the sitter's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, they're telling me that you need to plan for your flight being canceled or something like this, or pack that extra pair of underwear because you're going to be in this place a little bit longer than you expected." And then the sitters will often be like, "That's so funny. I didn't believe you, but then exactly what you said happened, and I did prepare for it, and I bought that travel insurance, and I did that thing so that it wasn't." And they were like, "I felt empowered by that knowledge." So usually, if information's going to come that someone can't validate yet, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's usually to empower and to just help out and to smooth the process out because they can't, not make the plane be canceled, right? But they can give you a heads up about it
Uh-huh.
so you're not like, caught off guard. And so those are always, I don't know why I get tickled by those ones so much. I think it's because it's practical.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a pretty practical person. People can take action on it and adjust their travel plan. And all information about people getting pregnant and having babies comes through. Um, I had a dad come through for a client and he knew everything about the wedding. He knew everything about her cat that time. He knew all the things came up and then he knew about she wasn't pregnant yet, but that there was gonna be a baby boy coming. And she's like, "I'm not even thinking about that." I was like, "Okay, hold it gently. You don't need to make it fit. Don't feel pressure to have kids. Like, don't take it that way, but there's someone coming." And then she's like, um, "Actually, I feel like I haven't heard from her yet, but I feel like I will." I'm getting the feeling like, I think that I'm gonna actually hear from them about that." And so so that client is holding that
Yeah.
gently. So this thing, just life stuff usually, life things that are kind of coming down the line. Our life is just so precious. I think that's the other thing, and that's a message that comes through a lot is enjoy it while you can, that kind of a thing, that all of our lives are unique and very precious. Everybody is loved. And I think that love is probably the most powerful force there is. I know that there's a lot going on in the world right now and it doesn't feel like that. I do want to acknowledge there's certainly hardship and I would never sugarcoat or look, rose colored glasses things, but I do feel like I, from being a medium and working in this way, it has made me realize the preciousness of all life, and the power of love. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I mean, to feel it on such a deep level, it doesn't feel like a cliche at all. It feels real and true and really and something very important to cultivate
Mm,
and to remember.
I love that. Well, Emily, this has been so much fun, and I've really learned a lot from you. This has been great. Can you tell us how people can find out more about you?
Yeah, so I have a website called Blooming Wand, bloomingwand.com. I also have a podcast called the Blooming Wand Podcast, and that's a great way to stay connected. I like to send out newsletters with all kinds of fun things within them. I lean more away from the selling aspect of marketing, and I like to educate and share information and just kind of connect people with some of these things that I've learned, because I do want, like I said, to kind of raise the standard of care, just help people understand how they can engage with these tools. So the best way is through my website at Blooming Wand.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.